Okay, high impact. In this video, we're going to go over a full tool set. Well, why does it matter? Well, having a full tool set and knowing what it's used for creates so much more efficiency. If we're going into any job site, any kitchen, if we're missing one of the tools, we waste so much time and energy. And a lot of the times people might have a full tool set, but they're actually using the wrong tool for the job. It's like using a fork to do a spoon's job or a hammer to do a screwdriver's job. So, what we're going to go through in this one is showing the major types of information and the right tool to actually hold that information so that we have organization. And organization is everything has its place and everything in its place. So, let's start by looking at the first four major types of information that most of us manage. One's the calendar. Simple, right? We have scheduling, we have appointments. It could be all day events like birthdays, anniversaries, or going to the doctor at 10 a.m., your weekly agenda meeting, so forth. Regarding your projects and tasks, we have our one offs. When it's complete, it's complete. It could be anything from the hiring the new web designer to creating the new website to acquiring another company to just getting new pens from there. The last is the recurring tasks. What is actually happening daily, weekly, monthly, multiple times a week? The repetitive nature of the business when it comes to the job roles and the documentation. We want to have a tool for that as well. And the last is like tons of information. There's so much information we have coming at us. It's like a digital library. So, where do we get to house that as well? So for each one of these, the examples are easy, right? We talked about the calendar, the scheduling, the appointments, the projects and tasks being the one-offs, the job roles and documentation. Think about something for like social media marketing. Maybe you need to do content every Tuesday and Thursday. You got to check mail every day. You got to be paying bills once a week. In this area, in my experience, is where almost every business doesn't have the right tool for the job. It's either missing, or if they are using another tool to actually try and do this job. Um, Imagine your entire org chart. Imagine your entire organism or organization. Each one of those roles has duties that they have to be doing daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly in order to keep it together. It's kind of like, how do we keep the whole airplane ready to go so that I can take off as well as land? Um, and the examples from the lots of stuff. I mean, we have information coming at us all day long, notes from ongoing meeting, job documentation, hires, folders. How do we have access to this stuff and put it in a place to where we know exactly where it is? And most importantly, it can be retrieved within seconds. Because in a disorganized place where there aren't best practices and agreements on where things get to go, more than half of the time can be spent looking for things that you need in order to move it forward. So lots of time and energy is wasted there. So let's go look at the actual tool options. What's great is almost all of them are free in these days. Calendar, you got Google Calendar, you got iCal, you can also use paper. Um, in my experience, using tech supports a lot because there's a lot less rewriting, but paper will never go away as a supporting mechanism to make things happen. And each tool really depends on your preference. What I love here in a calendar, making sure that it's actually synced between your calendar and your phone so you can be running it from anywhere. When it comes to your project and task management, I personally love Todoist for personal. If you just have maybe yourself or one other person, it's the easiest tool to onboard, get familiar with. It's flexible, it's knowing how to learn. When it comes to your teams, my two favorite ones are Asana and Trello. I've personally used Asana with our teams for like 10, 15 years minimum. And it's just picking the right tool based on how you think. Also, you can use paper, but because this area has so much information, new information that's happening every day, changing the information that's happening all the time, it's actually nice to actually have one place in tech where it can come back together at the end of the day and the end of the week and move it forward. When it comes to the job roles and documentation, The best option that I've used was actually just using Google Sheets. We have templates set up for it. And when you back that up with Google Drive and the documentation, and for people being able to learn, it is so easy. The other one, if you're in Microsoft, you can use Excel backed with OneNote. But this company, hands down, if you'd love to talk to me on it, is called Trainual. And they completely bridged that gap in like project management tool and documentation. It has taken the role of getting the recurring nature of the business out of the head and set up a system that is so easy to be cross-trainable, to be scalable, and be sellable, and be away from it. It literally has really locked down that most important aspect of setting up a company to have fluidity within itself, as well as hiring new people. When it comes to the lots of information stuff, biggest ones out there, Google Drive, so easy to manage, set up, and access. There's also OneNote if people use it on the Microsoft side, and then Evernote as well. So what I want to emphasize here is having a full tool set is necessary in order for the information to flow into the right place and to keep it all organized. And in the end, it's not the tool, it's the behaviors. So the solution to a overall system is not technological, it's behavioral. But first you get to have those technologies in place so that you can actually have places for the information to go, but the solution isn't technological, it's behavioral. So how often do you see people asking online, like, oh my gosh, I wish I had this. What tool do you use? I'm using Upwork, I'm using Microsoft Teams, do I use Asana, do I use like OneClick? Like, it doesn't matter, because normally most people are going after a new tool and they're trying to get that organized with the same behaviors, which only ends up with the same amount of chaos and clutter in the end. It's about the best practices and the routines to keep it together. So for these tools, this is a quick summary of the best practices. One, your calendar is your holy grail. It's the place to work off of. It's your landscape. When items are missed on this, there's usually consequences, like financially or socially, right? It's like missing the doctor appointment, missing the anniversary. All of a sudden, you didn't pay your bills on time, and and there are actual like consequences and lack of integrity. So when you start to notice that people are missing things like that, it's a red flag that they don't have a good system in place. When it comes to the projects and tasks, having a clarity of a task entry. And that simply means that there's a clear desired outcome with a clear written next action. Who's it assigned by when and who needs to follow it? In a nutshell, at the end of every meeting notes things that are happening, knowing what needs to be done clearly by who and by when. It's amazing how so many people leave themselves or their meetings and they don't even have this in. But having this in place will save so much time in rethinking it and questions over and over again. When it comes to the job roles and documentation, why is this tool so important? Like, it literally is the recurring nature of every single role inside of the organization. It's the system, it's the checklist, it's what's the heartbeat. It makes sure that the overall plane is ready, that nothing's going to fall off, that the landing gear's in check, that the wings are okay, that the oil's done, the food's going to get delivered. It literally is a system that creates it that's cross-trainable, scalable, and like being away from it, and it allows the checklist. And the last one, the best practices when it comes to the lots of information, have it be in the cloud so it's easily accessible and collaborative, because there's going to be so much information that's there. So it's that easy. And last and not least is, no matter what tool you use, take the day to actually read the help files and study the keyboard shortcuts for all the tools, so that there's actually extreme efficiency inside each of those tools and knowing what's possible. Now, when you go read the help file, you'll notice that only about 10 to 20% of its features create 80 to 90% of the value. Keep it simple, but at least you'll know what it is actually capable of. So hope that supports, and that's a full tool set, the reasons why. And once we have this in place, we can learn where the information is going and actually show the behaviors and the best practices to keep this all together.